On today's special crossover edition of Locked On Wild and Locked On Avalanche, it is going to be a big year for a couple of key areas for both the Wild and the Avs. We'll tell you who and why.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into a special crossover edition of Locked On Wild and Locked On Avalanche. We are your team each and every day. And we thank you for making both Locked On Wild and Locked On Avs your first listen each and every day. Make sure you smash that like button on YouTube and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. And for those of you that listen on your favorite audio platforms, we salute you as well. Make sure you hit subscribe. We don't care where you listen. We don't care how you listen. We care that you do listen. So we appreciate everybody that tunes in on the daily. And we got a good one for you in store here today. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you will get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On today's episode of Locked On Wild and Locked On Avalanche, we take a look at the season for both the Avs and the Wild. We'll take a look at some key areas, including, is it going to be a big year for Alexander Georgiev with free agency looming? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Minnesota Wild trying to avoid being the mild Wild. And we'll take a look at the top coaches in the Central. My name is Seth Topal, host of Locked On Wild, credentialed Wild media member, and here with my friends from Locked On Avs, Mr. Chris Maselli, and Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Fellas, great to have you. Let's start off with a sound check because that's my favorite thing to do is when I cross over with a show that has a very defined and very good bit, we got to keep it rolling, right? Like we got to incorporate it,
right?
So we're like a week out, or in the case of the Devils and the Sabres, we're like 24 hours out from the season starting.
Right.
And so I'll start. Let's ready, set, go. It's a little country number. Chase Rice.
Oh, that's
ready,
not
set,
the one
go.
I was thinking of. Okay.
I am full systems go to get this season started. Chris, we'll go to you first, then Kyle, of course. Where are you guys at with some sound as the season approaches?
I think I used this one last year, and I think I'm just going to use it every year to start the season. It's from a Tom Morello album, a solo album, and on his solo albums, he has a lot of people that he has featuring, and he's got "Bring Me the Horizon." And the name of the song is Let's Get the Party Started. It's very simple, but good Lord, is it a bang. I mean, you got Tom Morello involved. It will get you going. So I'm going to go with that one. I love that you're doing this. This is great.
And that's I love that this is what we're leading with, because honestly, with everything the Avs have going on this year, like when you mentioned Soundcheck, like for the Avs going into this year, Primo Victoria by Sabaton. Just everything the Avs have to go through this year. If you listen to that song, it's like it's going back to like 1944. It's a battle song, and the Avs will have to battle this year. The cap, they have to battle the team, injuries, not being the sexy team in the Central. Like they have a lot to do to get back to where they belong, and it's going to be a battle this year. You don't just show up and win these games. Like you got to fight, and the Avs have to fight this year.
Yeah, this is our fourth volume, by the way, of Soundcheck.
Yeah,
going into this year. So yeah, a lot of songs.
I'm gonna actually retract mine. I have a much better one that I think encapsulates getting back into the swing of covering things for the season. I'm going with "Creep" by Radiohead because
come on now, yeah.
I did my first like full rollout of all the pre and post game bits that I'm going to do this year for games on Tuesday's game against the Blackhawks, mostly the full roster. And I was just trying to be real deliberate and make sure that I had everything down. So I knew, okay, here's how long this is going to take. Here's where we want to put all this stuff. And I look up at the clock and it's like I think it was 3:52. And I'm like, what am I doing here? And it just reinforced we put a lot of work in, but I love it.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my God.
I guess by being somebody that just dives in and puts all this stuff in for our favorite teams, especially, in the case of the Minnesota Wilds, like I wouldn't have it any other way. But
could you have some of those like to go to your song? It's almost like I don't belong here. It's like is it real?
Yeah,
like almost like pinch me. That's one.
Sometimes
pinch me,
when you're covering a game where they lose like 8-3, you're like, what the hell am I doing here?
Right. That too.
You look up at the clock and it's that guitar riff that cha-chunk.
Oh, yeah. So I think I'm gonna change and I'm gonna go to that one. I think that is a much better encapsulation of where we're at as the season approaches.
That works.
Fellas, let's start with the Avs, because I have been sitting on this question for a while and I've been meaning to just like reach out and ask, but I figured it'd be perfect to just do this for a crossover because you mentioned the cap situation for the Avs. They'll be maneuvering it all season. There is a pretty big question with the goaltending situation beyond this season. You got Alexander Georgiev, who's going to be an unrestricted free agent after the year is done. You've got Justus Annunen signed for next year, and then he's a restricted free agent after that. How big of a year is this for Georgiev to play either for an extension here or to play for money elsewhere, and for Annunen to see if he's got the chops to take over if Georgiev does not end up sticking around?
Yeah, we talked about this a week or two ago, Kyle, and we kind of both feel like this, no matter what, this is it for him in Colorado. He's had 2 years of up and down play. His first year was good. His second year was not as good, but still somehow led the league in wins. Well, not somehow. When you have an offense like the offense that the Avalanche have, it makes you look a little bit better than you are. But redeemed himself in the playoffs, had an excellent playoff. So it is the great unknown for him for this year. As far as where he goes with the Avs, like I said, Kyle and I both kind of feel like this is it for him, because if he has a poor year, they can't continue to keep doing that with him. So they won't re-sign him. If he has a good year, he's probably going to want more money than the Avalanche like to spend on goalies. So away he goes. So yeah, I think that's why you saw them address goalie over and over and over again in the draft. Not all those goalies are coming up, but their number one pick, which was actually in the second round, in Ilya Nabokov, is him and Justus Annunen are their future. And yeah, I think they're going to give Justus a really good look this year, knowing they might need to use him a lot more next year. We'll see how that goes, though.
Yeah, and you're expecting a 1A, 1B situation going out throughout the year, and with a heavy look on the B. Pretty much what you're getting out of Georgiev, and it looks like business as usual going through the preseason. So going into this season, we talked about it, like Chris mentioned, like he could have a Vezina quality year, and the Avs just aren't going to pay that. Like the Swayman situation that's going on in Boston, like fans were saying, hey, here we go, there's our answer. The Avs don't pay that kind of money for a goalie. That's why they landed Georgiev. He wanted a chance to shine and start. Has he proven it? Jury's still out, but they don't pay over like the 5-6 is rich. So like if this is what he wants, a Vezina quality year, and he wants that kind of money, well, it's been nice knowing you. Yeah. The Avs won a cup with Darcy Kemper. They'll win with somebody else. So,
yep,
that's a very, very good point. Former Minnesota Wild goalie Darcy Kemper, by the way,
yes.
But not a cup winner with the Wild, obviously, with the Avs. Guys, what's the latest on Gabriel Landeskog and Valeri Nichushkin? And we'll ask that, because then depending on what your answer is here, obviously the Robin Lehner situation was fascinating earlier this week, in which the league is just like, hey, you guys don't have to count him on your cap because we just need to find ways to bail out Vegas every year, I guess.
Unbelievable.
Where are they at in their process? Where are we expecting to see them, early on in the year, midway through, at some point before the end of the season? What's the latest with two pretty important pieces to Chicago's team? Colorado's team. Good Lord, what am I doing?
Wow, yeah, I didn't hear. I'll take Val, and Kyle can take Gabe. Yeah, and Juskins, he can't come back until the middle of November. That's when the suspension runs till, and they use the wording like that's when he can ask to be reinstated. I don't think there's anything there that would prolong that. Like once that date comes, I don't know I think it's like the what is it, the 14th, Kyle, or the 16th or something like that. Yeah. It's in the teens somewhere. And the team has said over and over again they're preparing for him to come back. I think they've explored as many avenues as they have tried to, which would lead me to believe terminating his contract, which the league said you cannot do. I'm sure they have attempted to maybe mock up a trade somehow, and I don't think any team is going to touch that until he's actually reinstated. Maybe that is on the docket of as soon as he's reinstated, they have a team ready to go. That's possible. But just hearing how the team is talking about it and how the players are talking about him, how Chris McFarland, GM, is talking about it, even Joe Sakic, they're planning on welcoming him back because he's a huge part of the team. And right. I think they want him they want to see him succeed with the Avalanche, overcome his personal problems while with the Avalanche, and help them try to go win another cup. Because he's massive to this team. So they just don't want to get rid of him and give up on a human. But good Lord, help me if he does it again. Then we're looking at a full year suspension, and who knows where we go. They probably still won't let them terminate his contract because they're not called Vegas Golden Knights. But I even hesitate to bring that up because I don't even want to think about it right now. But yeah, he should be back mid-November, and away we go.
Okay.
And the situation around Captain Gabe Landeskog. We just talked about Darcy Kemper winning a cup for the Avalanche. That's the last time you've seen the captain play for the Avalanche, was the Stanley Cup. Lifting the Stanley Cup was the last time you've seen Landeskog. And we've gone back and forth for a couple of years now on if he's returning. And I was in the camp of no. Chris was very much yes, and Chris is right. He's looking well. No,
I don't want to take full credit for it. My thinking was like, I think he'll give it a go. I don't think he'll just hang him up and say that's it. I'm in the camp of I think he'll come back, and we still would have to see what happens once he comes back if he can continue a full season. So
Gabe must have listened to the show because he doubled down on it to make sure. He held a press conference with McFarland. They kind of led into what the season's going to look like, and it's a when, not if situation. And all the wording around this sounds positive. Like McFarland was even on the broadcast the other night in the preseason game talking about Landy's return, and it's just making sure everything irons out to where it is. You could see these little clips that are posted on Twitter X, whatever you want to call it nowadays, and he's looking good. He's making hockey moves, but in hockey action, that's a whole different story. But we're expecting maybe like late October, November, possibly for Landy's return. But then once he makes that return, it's how long is it sustainable from there on out? And that's the next question.
Yeah, they could get both of those guys back right around the same time frame.
Wow.
Yeah, could be. And Kyle brought up when we were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, we were looking at the schedule, trying to guesstimate when it could be for Landeskog. They play the Lightning the last week of November. It is in Tampa Bay, but how poetic would that be? That his last game was against Tampa, lifting the cup, and his first game back is against Tampa in Tampa. That'd be awesome.
I'm going to clip this so that when that does happen, then I can say, hey, you heard it here first.
That's right.
Yeah, we had it.
That would be awesome.
It is something too that I've been pretty adamant about whenever I've done any sort of like Central Division preview shows, other podcasts that I've been on, that really feels like the difference for Colorado to go from being, I still think they can get to the 100+ point mark easy. But adding even one of those guys back into the mix is where you go from like a mid 100-point team to into the 110s, where you're like, okay, you're a clear cut, definite contender for not only the conference but for the Stanley Cup too. And so it's tough to not have those guys because of just how important they are to what the Avs are trying to do.
When we did the division crossover episode with the top 4 teams in the Central, we talked about that, about where each team is according to FanDuel and their point projection. They have the Avalanche at number 1 at 104.5. I was like, that seems at number 1 in the division. Like that seems kind of low. And I had made the comment of the Avs finished 3rd in the division last year and scored 109 points. Or 107, I'm sorry. But so they got them. I think all of the point projections in the Central seem a little bit low to me on FanDuel. So maybe put some scratch down on it. I don't know.
I heard it was pretty much Dallas, Colorado, and Nashville versus Winnipeg in that episode.
That was a fun. We had our fun with Harrison.
Poor guy.
He took it like a sport because he kind of incriminated himself by saying like, "Yeah, I know it's us."
We did that in the Pretender show too. We went around and talked about which team we think would fall out of the top 4, and it was unanimously Winnipeg.
Yeah, I know.
So we'll see.
But who do you think is going to replace them?
Well, that could depend on a few questions that I'm sure you guys have for the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah.
And so let's dive into the mini questions for the Minnesota Wild. Trying to avoid being the mild Wild. I'm worried that I've turned that into a phrase that's going to be used like all season, but we'll see. We'll talk Minnesota Wild as we continue today's crossover edition of Locked On Wild and Locked On Avalanche after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild and Locked On Avalanche is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You don't have to be like me and have 30 tabs open following my fantasy team while the action is going on. FanDuel's got it all lined up for you right in one place. And best of all, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. It doesn't have to be a winner. $5 is all it takes. You could have bet on the Minnesota Twins in any game in the second half of the season, and even if they lost, you would get your $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. So head to FanDuel.com to get started today. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back to today's special crossover edition of Locked On Wild and Locked On Avalanche. Once again, we are your team each and every day. Make sure you follow both shows on YouTube, on your favorite audio platforms, and on social media as the season gets going because it's a lot going on, a lot of graphics. You guys have the Soundchecks going on, absolutely A+. There's a lot of stuff to take in, but that's a sports season in general. There are a lot of angles to cover. And these two shows are two of the best. So make sure to follow along so you don't miss out on any news as we roll through. All right, fellas, let's talk some Minnesota Wild. I know you guys have many questions of me, and so it's all yours. I'm an open book.
We'll start it off, Kyle.
I do. Something very juicy. It's been keeping me, just skipping through the streets. I heard Kirill the Thrill wants to go to Chicago.
Oh God, no!
I
could answer that for you, Seth.
No,
but
what does this kind of just the scuttlebutt? What does this do for the Minnesota Wild locker room going into this season, knowing this is the rumor? Like, what? How do you fire your team up already with the construction the way it is and what you have to overcome to get? And you were talking about the top 4 of the Central. Like, what does this do to the morale of the team going into the season?
Well, I think if you're anybody in that locker room not named Kirill Kaprizov, you in the back of your head are thinking, boy, I better really show out, because you got to collectively be part of this idea that the Wild have to show Kirill that they are committed to being a winner for him to stick around long term. And it's interesting because the Wild have already put out, Craig Leopold has, we're going to offer him more money, more years than anybody else can. Mm-hmm. That's one piece of the puzzle. And with a particular owner of another team in Minnesota, hearing that is something that should just be automatic from ownership. But having that particular owner of that other baseball team here in the state, it's nice to hear. It's nice to hear it. But that's one piece of the puzzle. You can throw as much money as possible at a guy, but if you're a team that's going nowhere, it's not going to matter. At the end of the day, Kirill wants to compete for a Stanley Cup. Now, he would be the guy here. Like, he would be the tried and true go-to guy, the face of the franchise if he stays here. He may have a better chance to win elsewhere, depending on how rosters are constructed and such, but I think everybody on that roster just has to have in the back of their head that, I better make sure that I'm doing my part to make sure that we're winning, because at the end of the day, winning is what's going to keep him here. And it's funny because Mark Lazarus actually dramatically walked that take back about Kirill being interested in Chicago, because he said, I may have misspoke. He said Chicago would be very interested in Kirill coming here when he is a free agent in 2026. And I'm like, well, duh. Every non-Minnesota Wild team should be interested in his services. He's a premier scorer in the league, just unbelievable speed, a knack with the puck. You name it, he's got everything that you want. And so every team not named Minnesota should be lining up should he become available. And so I thought that was funny that Mark Lazarus was like, he didn't actually say that he was interested in Chicago. Chicago's just like, hey, this would be really fun if he came here. And so I had to do a little everybody calm down. Calm down. He's still here. But no, you're right on though. It's like it starts. The clock has already started.
Yeah.
And every decision from now until the time that he is officially a free agent impacts his desire to stay.
Yeah.
Every single one.
But can't you take kind of, if you're Kaprizov, can't you kind of take into account the moves that they are making now? And as far as draft picks and things like that, because when you come due for this extension and this kicks in, like some of these guys that you have already drafted should start becoming into their own, and that's enticing. And then, if you can get a guarantee that you can go out and sign some guys in the free agent market, which why would you think they wouldn't? Like those contracts will be off the books. Minnesota's it plays to contend. So if you're Kaprizov, I'd be pretty comfortable with their draft picks that they made, the prospects that we have. And when we have some more money to free it up, they will spend it wisely. So how do you feel? I mean, you got to feel comfortable. Yeah, it might be a grind for this year. Probably will be a grind for this year. But as far as prospects goes, and what this team does, this front office does to stay competitive, that's not going to change.
No, and I think that's a good point to bring up too, is the transition this year, I think is going to be, okay, we've got guys in spots that aren't producing at the level that is needed. I keep keying in on it. I'm trying to be a better, I'm trying to be a better host, trying to be a better somebody that covers this team. But every time I key in on a specific weakness on this team, it's that second line wing spot that Marcus Johansson occupies, because I charted it, guys. I charted it last season. He had 43 games last year in which he had one shot or fewer.
Really?
Ooh.
43 games for a second line wing spot.
Winger.
Would that fly in Colorado?
No.
I don't think it would fly anywhere.
I'm trying to think of someone who did like more than that, and Alex Newhook. I think he did more than that, and they cut him.
They're shot heavy in Colorado. Like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like consecutive no shot nights or one shot. Like, one shot is appalling.
That's crazy. Wow.
And there were a handful, probably a half dozen guys last year. Once John Hines put Kirill Kaprizov, Joel Eriksson Ek, and Matt Boldy together on February 7th, those final 30 games of the season, there were like 6 or 7 regular guys that had 5 points or fewer in 30 games. And so here's the A to B. So you have some of those pieces have been upgraded. Like you brought in Yakov Trenin, you brought in Jacob Lauko, who I think have been 2 of the best players on the roster in the preseason. I love what Trenin brings. I love what Lauko brings. And so those are 2 spots that are upgraded. What Bill Guerin needs to do for Kirill is to say, okay, we have these other spots in the lineup. They're just not working out. So here's where we place one of those prospects. Here's where we place some of those young players into the mix, because this team, of their top 10 prospects right now, I think probably 6 of them are expected to be high impact guys, not just like play at the NHL level, like high impact players that are going to impact your top 6, your top 4 defensemen, or be your starting goalie. And so that's where the prospects come into this as, hey, Kirill, these guys, we've got some older guys on this roster right now that maybe can't get it done, but we have replacements for them in the system. We just got to get from A to B. And once we do, then the lineup is going to be younger, going to be quicker, and is going to have a lot of guys that just can really hit high ceilings while also being on ELCs.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And then you just pitch it as, and you're obviously the massive piece of that puzzle.
Yep.
You know, and you sign on a dotted line, that just takes us to the next level, clearly.
I worry less. I worry less about him re-upping than I do about there being a problem with the plan a couple years down the road to where he says, I can't do this anymore. And he says, I need to go elsewhere. But then again, if you sign him to a deal for 12, 13 million a year, you very much limit the spots in which he can go during that contract, because there are not a lot of teams that can just take that money in on their books, save maybe Anaheim, San Jose. Is he going to want to go to those spots? Maybe a few years down the road.
It is California, big market, but but I can't. I just think he likes it there. From the outside looking in, from an outside perspective, I just feel like that's a good fit. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think. What do you got, Kyle?
No, this kind of follows into my my other question I have for the Wild going into this year. Since we're already shipping Kirill the Thrill out to Chicago, done deal. What do we do after the Flower retirement tour? What does the goalie position look like for Minnesota?
Well,
pretty good.
This has been a long ongoing thing, because it seemed like once the season was done last year that the desire was to trade Philip Gustafsson and go into the season with Jesper Wallstedt and Marc-Andre Fleury as your goalie tandem. And I was banging the table from day one. I'm like, I don't know if I want to go with a 39-year-old and a rookie and say, here's 82 starts, go get them.
Right.
And so this season, what the Wild said, what Bill Guerin said, is that the team is going to go with a 3 goalie rotation. And when they said that, I was like, that might be worse. That might be worse than going with Fleury and Jesper for the season. But I think that was a rhetoric mix-up, because everything that I've seen since, they may at times carry 3 goalies depending on road trip, injury, whatever. But I think what Bill Guerin was trying to get across is that they're going to use 3 goalies this year. Jesper's going to get some starts at the NHL level. He's expected to be the guy going forward after Fleury retires. But honestly, I'm relieved that at this point they haven't moved Gustafsson, because if you did that and Fleury retires after this year's done, all of a sudden your only goalie next year is going to be a guy who's just getting his feet wet at the NHL level. Then you got to go out and find somebody else. And I don't know if Martin Jones is still going to be around at that point. So I like that Gustafsson's still here, because I think that could be a really good 1A, 1B next year. And it gives you a great opportunity to say, all right, Jesper, you got maybe 10 starts this year, 10, 15 starts this year. Now we'll give you 35. And if you need a break at some point during the year, we've got Gustafsson that can, he can be the guy if needed. But I think that's the plan going into next year, unless Gustafsson shows more stretches like he had last year, where he just inconsistent and just kind of uneven. Then maybe Bill Guerin does one of his hockey trades where he ships him out and just worries about next year. But I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts on the 3 goalie thing, especially if you're going to make a rookie be the third wheel, as opposed to the guy who is 39, showed some signs of age last year. Seems like that might be the better option to have be that third guy, but what do I know?
I was reading the hockey news, season previews and things like that. And something struck me crazy in the Wild write-up. And they talked about their special teams from last year. And it said that, where is it? At one point, the Wild ranked lower than the worst penalty kill in league history. They pulled themselves out of that dubious claim. But first of all, how bad actually? Well, I mean, that's a stupid question, but I just wanted to get your take on, like, how bad did it actually get? And has it improved? Like, is that going to be a difficult spot for the Wild this year in special teams, namely the penalty kill?
It was worse. Whatever you've read about the Wild penalty kill last year, it was worse than what you've read. Like, there were large stretches of games where you just are assuming anytime the Wild get called for a penalty that the other just add a goal to the scoreboard. Now, some of that is on the goalies. Obviously, the goalies have to make the saves, and Wild goalies last year were not good on the penalty kill at all. But it's equal parts volume and personnel for me. I think the Wild as a team just takes so many penalties that unit just has no chance to really be successful, because you're always, you go on the penalty kill and you maybe get a successful kill, and then 2 seconds later you commit another penalty, and it's demoralizing. Like, okay, now we got to go do this again, and then the team scores on the power play and you're like, all right, well, that was fun. I think the hope that will fix that penalty kill unit this year is the implementation of more speed, and also having Jared Spurgeon back, because I think Spurgeon does way more for this team than is even noticeable on the surface level, especially in just the communication on the ice. And so having him be back and part of that penalty kill unit is going to be huge, but Yakov Trennin's going to play a big role.
I'm going to bring him up, yeah.
We saw Jacob Lauko get some penalty kill time over the last few games. Marat Huznadinov, another Wild prospect who's going to be at this point, a fourth-line center on this team, is going to have a huge role on the penalty kill too. A lot of speed on that unit, and I think they're going to prioritize, as opposed to being big and hunkering down, trying to go out and get the puck and stop people from being able to set up shop and just tic-tac-toe it. I think that'll help with getting that percentage back up to where it should be, which is anywhere other than third from last. Like, and that's the crazy part about it too, is it seems like all of these Minnesota Wild seasons get sabotaged by, you just need something to be like league average. You don't need it to be a top 2 unit. If the penalty kill would have been 14th or 13th last year, I think they would have been just fine, but it was third from last.
Wow. third from last at the end of the season, and at one point they were worst in league history. That's not bad. Impressive. That's actually impressive. They didn't.
They got 3 goalies now, so don't worry.
They were at one point better than or worse than the worst penalty kill in NHL history, and I've also seen a power play that was at one point worse than the worst power play in NHL history too. I've seen both of those since I took over Lockdown Wild.
Wow.
So I would like to just have one season where maybe both are like, these are the best ever. These are the best that these have ever been, both in one season. But
yeah, and maybe this can get into our coaches talk. But one thing that kind of just like blew me away when I was reading up on them and stuff like that, they fired Dave Evason in November.
Yeah.
Why do I feel like it was much later than that? and I remember, I think I messaged you or something like that when they fired him. I'm like, I don't agree with that, just because of that's an impossible spot for a coach to be in with, the cap situations that they have. Like that's so tough to do that job. And I didn't like that they fired him. And I didn't remember that it was in November. So I got angry again of like, man, like that's this guy's like livelihood. And you gave him 2 months into, when was it? Early November, mid-November? I don't remember.
It was, I think, so it happened after a loss to Detroit. And I know the first game that John Hines took over was November 27th against the St. Louis Blues. So I want to say it was
right around Thanksgiving.
Maybe that I think it was literally that Monday that it happened, and they brought John Hines in, and he basically just like got there and then coached in the game against the St. Louis Blues that they won. But Dean said it in interviews that he did after the fact that he got fired because the goalies couldn't make a save. And that's basically what it boiled down to, is the goalies were just not ready for the season to start. And it trickled up to every aspect of the team, and they just could not get out of their own way. And when you have as many expectations as this team does, because they continue to insist that, like last year, they continued to insist that they were going to make the playoffs. It was a playoff caliber team. Like you do that to yourself, where it's okay, if you're a playoff team, then you got to do things to get yourself into that position. And they just were fighting an uphill battle from every point after that. Last year felt like 3 distinct seasons. The Sweden trip feels like one season in and of itself. Dean getting fired is season number 2, and then the John Hines tenure is the third part of the whole thing. It was an eternity last year.
And how's the return so far with him? Fan base like him? Is it like where's it going?
It is interesting because I think he runs a similar type of system and style that Dean Evason did. But I think the big difference that John Hines made, and I'm surprised that it has taken hold as much as it has, is I think the big like distinguishing feature for Dean's teams was that they were going to try to slow everybody down. We're going to try to slow everybody down. We're going to try to be physical because we can't play at that speed. So, if you have a team that comes in with a ton of speed, you got to try to slow them down, wear them out. John Hines has kind of flipped the script a little bit, and the Wild are playing more of a like modern NHL style where, yes, they don't have the same speed and skill as other teams, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to, like, if a team gets the puck onto your end of the ice, get it out and flip it back up the ice. And so just by even just saying, we got to do the same things that these other teams are doing, I think has led to this team being able to, for the most part, stick with everybody that they play. Like, if you try to just like be a bowling ball out there and knock everybody down, you're going to have a couple of teams that you maybe can do that against successfully, but by and large, people are just going to run right past you.
Right.
So I think doing that, I like all the tactical stuff that he's done too throughout his tenure. He very much is somebody that gets a feel of how the game is going, and he may tweak his line combinations in game if he wants to get a better look than he had at the start. Dean was very much a 1, 2, 3, 4. And like, we're just going to attack. And if you beat us, you beat us. if we beat you, then we're not going to make too many changes. So I like some of that tactical stuff, but it's all about postseason wins. And as of right now, John Hines does not have a postseason series win under his tenure. Maybe this is the year that changes, but I don't know. I am of the belief that there's a particular type of coach that can lead a team to success, much like a Jared Bednar or a John Cooper or a Bruce Cassidy or any of those types of coaches. Like somebody who just is a tried and true, like has won at every level, able to lead a team, able to get the best out of their team. Like I know Philly has their warts and they're a very limited roster, but John Tortorella is one of my favorite coaches there is. He always gets the most out of his players.
He does. And you can quibble with if you agree with how he does it, but the results are what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just pretty much every level he's been at, every team he's been with, he has been able to get success out of because he gets guys to buy in, and if you don't buy into what he's doing, you're going to be playing for somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's curious because I can remember the tone shift in the games the Avs had against the Wild, where that slowdown, like just get physical, it was annoying, and the Avs had to work around it, and it's why everybody knows Jordan Greenway. But I mean, it's just that shift. Like, is it enough? And I know Winnipeg, they have new management, and the Central, when it comes to coaches, do you think this is where you guys are with Hines? Is he's going to be the answer going forward with everything we were talking about with Kirill the Thrill? Is this going to be the perfect union going forward as the identity for the Minnesota Wild?
Yeah. Or is he just like a stopgap guy?
Exactly.
I would tend to lean in the stopgap territory, but if he has done some things that I think have really impressed me with just how he manages games and the stuff that he talks about. And maybe I think it was a necessary shift to, hey, we're going to be one of the 4 or 5 teams in the league that try to go opposite of what everybody else is doing. Just saying, look, you really can't consistently win that way.
Mm-hmm.
And he, in both New Jersey and Nashville, I think they had similar issues in that, they obviously had talent on those teams, but not to the level that the teams they were going up against did. Similar situation here. And so if he can get this team, especially as these young players start to become more of the mix, if he can get the team to play more of a quick style, fast paced, just a modern style, like I'm going to be a fan because that's the kind of team that I want to see out there on the ice. And if you play that sort of a style and that's your philosophy, well, it makes it a lot easier to go out and try to acquire talent that can do it, or to put talent in the lineup that's in your farm system that can do it as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. What do you want to talk about other coaches?
Yes, let's just go through. Let's talk about some of the coaches in the Central that we like. There are some wild cards here. Like, I don't know what to think about the Blues head coach. We don't know what to think about Winnipeg's head coach at this point.
Yeah,
but obviously you've got Bednar, who I think is top of the division. I love Andrew Brunette, not just because he was a former Wild player, but because I think he just knows how to run a team, like command a team. So I'd put him in the list of the guys that have it. Pete DeBoer has a track record in multiple stops, and so I think he probably is a guy that has it as well. I'm going to put John Hines in the middle. I want to see what he does with a full season, and from what players have said, from what Wild players have said, this has been the hardest preseason and training camp that they've ever had. Harder than anything that Dean did. And so I like that. I kind of like the sounds of that. Like, let's go out here and let's be all business. Not to say that you can't have fun, but let's treat this season like one in which we want to get something done.
Right.
I'm going to put him in the middle. Luke Richardson too for Chicago, I think could be that guy. But here's the other thing too. Like, what do you guys think about this? I don't care if it's preseason or regular season. I feel like getting absolutely embarrassed in a preseason game, there's no excuse for that.
It happened. Our last game, the Avs' last game against Vegas was a 6-1 thumping by Vegas. They really just took the Avs to the cleaners. The Avs weren't playing, but hey, I was going to say they weren't playing like their top guys, but they had the top three out there. They had McKinnon, Makar, and Mikko out there. And they weren't going full speed, but still, they shouldn't have got him. And Georgiev was in goal. So there you go. I mean, it is what it is. You turn the page rather quickly. Actually, the night we're recording this, they're playing Vegas again. So we'll see how they can maybe turn the tide this time in Vegas. But it's preseason. I don't get too wrapped up in it.
Yeah.
But as far as coaches go, Kyle and I talk ad nauseum about Jared Bednar and just the disrespect that this guy gets. Not, I think, from within the players and other coaches, that gets all the respect in the world when the media comes into play and they're the ones that vote on this stuff. We've gotten to the point where he's not even included in the conversation anymore, just because his tenure. He's been there for so long, and that's not what we want to see from, giving someone a Jack Adams. I was reading an article on The Athletic, and they gave their awards for the year, and all their writers and stuff voted on it. First of all, Bednar's not even in here, and they did like 12 of them. So are you kidding me? Like, he's not the top 12 coach in the league. Okay. But they had Sheldon Keefe at number 1. And I like Sheldon Keefe, but didn't he just get fired? It's like, how do you go from getting fired to now you're the best coach in the league because you just went to a good team? Like, stuff like that just boggles my mind and really kind of annoys me.
Yeah, it's I always laugh at all that because, like, I feel like somebody's track record should speak for themselves. Like, obviously the Avs have been and it's not to say they didn't go through their bumps and bruises.
Oh, sure.
But Bednar over the last handful of seasons has been, like, the Avs have been one of the best teams in the league and they haven't even really faltered in being one of those top teams.
No, and it's not, and people can just look at it and be like, oh, well, when you have that talent, like, sure, okay. Number one, you have to coach that talent, which is not easy to do. We'll see if Burnett can do it in Nashville this year.
Yeah.
And two, like, the amount of injuries this man has dealt with, and kept this team at the top of the standings is just a work of art. And that doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion. I'm sure Kyle agrees with me there. Oh, can't hear you, Kyle. You're muted. Fix your mic. But no, we deal with it year in and year out. It's just an annual tradition at this point of go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, and Bednar, the other thing, you have Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, and Mikko Rantanen on this team. And nights when the team of Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen aren't working, he's not afraid to split that up. He's not afraid to make those in-game decisions where you're talking about with, like, Hines and stuff, where you're going into games with a tactical mindset. You have a game plan going in. Bednar has that. And he also makes in-game adjustments, but something we talk about on the show all the time. I can't wait till we get to the intermission, because Bednar is probably one of the best of firing the guys up in intermission, changing things around, flipping the script, and adjusting. And Bednar is really good at making those in-game little adjustments. And like Chris mentioned, with these injuries, with new faces, call-ups, call-downs, he knows how to navigate this roster. And this roster, doesn't matter if you're a part of the Eagles or you're for a seasoned Avalanche, you buy into what Bednar's saying.
Yeah.
And a team in the Avs that has, think of all the bottom 6 turnover that the Avs have had over the last however many seasons. It seems like there's a new one every year.
Yeah.
It takes a
It
good
is.
coach to be able to
Yeah.
plug all those pieces in. So
the one you didn't mention is maybe the other one that I really like, and I like this team, and I like this coach.
Oh God,
kind of knows where I'm going with this. Andre Tournier on Utah. I think Utah is in to surprise some people this year. I think we're just, I don't want to say people are writing them off, but they just still have that Arizona tag attached to them, and people just think, they're still a few years away, and they probably are. But they're going to be a competitive team this year. Their defense improved vastly, and I think Tournier is a really good coach.
they're going to have some fun games at the end of the season in Yeti Arena.
Don't. We are bitter.
I'll just say this. I'll say this. If they do make it the Utah Yeti, their first call better be Yeti brand for the corporate sponsor.
Oh my God, yeah.
Better be.
That you would think so.
If they get a petition in Denver.
Right. Did they call us first and ask permission is the first call they should make, and then call the Yeti company, and those are some good giveaways that they'll have at that arena, man.
Yeah, next time you're in the area, maybe give us a call and make sure it's okay first.
Yeah.
Great.
I'll
great
take
reference.
$2 hot dogs too.
Yeah. Ooh. Right?
There we go.
They're killing it right now with all this. Yep.
So I'll put Tourney just above. I'll put him above John Hines. I got John Hines in kind of the middle between the guys I have no idea about.
Right.
The guys that are tried and true, like good coaches.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put Tourney just above. But John Hines is going to show me a lot this year. Yeah. I'm willing to believe. I want to believe. Show it to me.
I think it's a division of coaches who have something to prove for each team. You could go down the list, and even with Bednar, you know what I mean. You could put, even though he's got the cup under his belt, he's got some things he's got to show for this year, sure. And you can go right down. I mean, obviously DeBoer does, so Burnett does. So almost every guy you could pick something out to be like, this is a big year for you.
Yeah, and if Hines does more like he did against Nashville, where he pulled Fleury and OT to get those 2 points, it's like,
dude, and
I love that so much,
and brought up a rule that none of us even knew existed.
Yeah, that is why I have, that is the point at which John Hines got my attention, and I was like, all right, you got my attention.
Yeah, doing the homework.
You got those Rocky Mountain oysters.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. I am excited this year because I'm going to be taking post game audio all year and just breaking it down, trying to get a little more into the nuts and bolts.
Mm-hmm.
I think he does some really good stuff. I just want to see what he does with the full season.
Right.
So,
agreed.
Well, fellas, this was a lot of fun. We could go for another 3 hours at this, but season is fast approaching. So make sure everybody to tune into both Locked On Wild and Locked On Avs so that you can stay up to date on all of your favorite teams with all the news, all the notes, all the pre and post game, everything you can possibly handle. We got it for you. So make sure to subscribe because you can find new episodes of both of these shows every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.